Welcome everybody. My name is Stacia and I'm a girl on the internet that likes to talk about movies. And for today's video, we have another crazy 80s Christmas movie original to talk about. We have the 1985 Christmas movie Santa Claus the Movie. This movie stars David Huddleston as Santa Claus, Dudley Moore as Patch the Elf, John Lithgow as BZ. You even have an appearance by Burgess Meredith as the Ancient Elf. Then you have Carrie Kei Heim as Cornelia and Christian Fitzpatrick as Joey as the two kids of this movie. This movie is kind of like two movies. The beginning of the movie is totally different from the end of the movie. So the beginning of the movie, you have your Santa Claus origin story. And then the end of the movie, you have this Christmas heist trying to take over Santa's job villain story. And I have to say, I saw this movie when I was a kid, when it first came out, and I have for the first time rewatched it. And I'm sorry if you love this movie. I know that it's beloved in England, especially. I have no idea why. And there's a lot of people that do like this movie, but I'm sorry. I rewatched it again to confirm what I thought of it or see if it was better than I thought of it when I was a kid, and I hate this movie. This movie is so bad. Even John Lithgow says it is his worst movie that he has ever done. It didn't get good reviews. It bombed at the box office. It was a huge bomb at the box office. It had a $50 million budget for a 1985 movie. It was a huge budget back then, and it did not make its money back. It made less than half of its budget back. And this movie is only 1 hour and 47 minutes, and it feels like the slowest, longest 3-hour movie that I have ever seen in my life. David Huddleston does a fine job at playing Santa Claus. No problems with him. John Lithgow is okay, although it seems like he is in a completely different movie. This movie is set in the 80s, but somehow, well, the latter half that seems like a different movie is set in the 80s. The first half goes through time as the origin of Santa, but John Lithgow and his cronies and even the two kids are playing it like this is set in the 1930s, when it is obviously set in the 1980s with the television and everything around them is 1980s, but they're purely acting as if they came right out of the 1930s. And Burgess Meredith is in this movie. He is in this movie for one scene. He gets some of the top billing of this movie, and he is in it for one scene. And this movie was hyped up as a huge movie at the time. It was going to be magnificent for everybody to watch. And like I said, it was a total failure that made less than half of its money back. It bankrupted the people who produced it. People's careers were set off track. I mean, it's just not good. I watched it again. Like I said, I watched it when I was a kid, when it first came out. I hated it then, and I hate it now. And like I said, John Lithgow in this movie. John Lithgow doesn't show up until an hour in the movie because they made two separate movies in this, seemingly, the Santa origin story, and he's in the second half, which is like this Christmas heist taking over Christmas from Santa movie. I love Dudley Moore. I love his movies. He is so great in Arthur, and I love him in Foul Play, and you get to see Burgess Meredith again with him from that. And this movie, oh my God, I can't stand Dudley Moore in this movie. Not to mention, this movie was obviously trying to be some sort of cash grab because the product placement in this movie, McDonald's obviously shelled out a lot of money for this movie just like they did the movie Mac and Me. Coke is prominently featured in this movie, and I'm not talking about Coke that we all know it. I am talking about the 1985 phenomena of New Coke is what's featured in this movie. And at the time that this movie came out, speaking of the McDonald's product placement, you could go to McDonald's and get one of 4 storybooks that related to the movie. And they also, McDonald's had a reindeer ornament that you could get with the $5 purchase of the booklets for this movie. I wonder how many people still have those from this movie. If there's anybody out there that happens upon my video, tell me, did you ever see or get the storybooks? Do you still have them? Do you have the ornament that you could get? It'd be really interesting to find out how those fast food purchases with meals that people get and keep in their lives. And I'm not the only one, like I said, that doesn't like this movie. There's a whole bunch of people that didn't like this movie. The people in it don't like this movie. John Lithgow calls it his worst film. Dudley Moore, after he first screened this movie, thought it was his big career ender. John Lithgow actually said in an interview in 2019, well after this movie came out, this was one of the tackiest movies I have ever been in. It seemed cheesy and it certainly never stuck, except in England. It is huge over there. I wish I had a nickel for every Englishman who told me it was their favorite film. In England, it is half of what I'm known for. That is crazy. If you're watching this and you're from England, tell me, is this your favorite Christmas movie or one of your favorite Christmas movies? I have to know what it is about this movie that some people love. I mean, this movie was brought to you by the team that brought you Supergirl the previous year. It was produced by the Sulkin, the French producing team that originally produced these Christopher Reeve Superman movies. They weren't doing that well at this time. Like I said, the previous year, along with the director of this movie, did the Supergirl movie, which I like that movie a whole lot better than this one. And this movie, I mean, they had a lot of good people working on it. They even had Henry Mancini. He did the music for this movie. Legendary Henry Mancini, who did the Pink Panther theme, who worked on Breakfast at Tiffany's. All of it, he did the music for this. The theme song, Christmas All Over the World, is sung by Sheena Easton, although it was originally, they offered it to Queen, and Queen didn't want to become the movie soundtrack band because they had already done Flash Gordon, they did a song for Iron Eagle, and they just weren't looking to become that band. Paul McCartney also passed on writing music for this movie. There's a whole lot of people that passed being involved in this movie, and good for them. James Cagney was originally thought to be, it was actually written for him to be the ancient elf, and he passed on it largely due to health reasons, though, and that's how Burgess Meredith got the part of the ancient elf. Fred Astaire was also considered for the role of the ancient elf. John Carpenter was offered to direct this movie, but he wanted script control, final edit approval, and he also wanted Brian Dennehy to play Santa Claus, which nobody else was on board with. That would have probably, if John Carpenter did this movie, it would have been a much better movie. BZ, the character that John Lithgow plays, the villain in the story, the role was offered to Harrison Ford, Burt Reynolds, Dustin Hoffman, and even Johnny Carson, all of who turned it down. This movie was filmed in the famed Pinewood Studios. Even the toys for this movie were made in Pinewood Studios, and they actually did donate all of the toys that were made in this movie to local kids' charities. And this movie was originally announced to be a movie in 1978 with David Niven in it. And Gene Kelly was supposed to direct it. It was supposed to be a big all-star affair with old Hollywood in it. And of course, that never came to light. But thank you for joining me on this second installment of the wacky 80s original Christmas movies that came out with 1985's Santa Claus the Movie. Tell me what you think of this movie, what your memories of this movie are. Do you think I'm insane? And do you think this is the best Christmas movie out there? Like I said, I would love to hear from people that love this movie. But thank you for joining me. See you next time. Bye.